Welcome to the podcast, Restore Yourself, Restore Your Marriage, where it's all about discovering the thoughts that get you in the mood, the thoughts that get you out of the mood, and how creating a deeper connection with yourself creates a deeper connection with your spouse. I'm your coach, Shelly Anderson, coaching you through life, love, and intimacy.
This is episode 203, Intimacy Insanity. What? Say it ain't so. Do we sometimes feel like we are going insane when it comes to navigating our intimate life with our spouse? Yes, it can be that way. A lot of times when couples come to me, or maybe just one of the spouses comes to me and are looking and seeking for some help, sometimes they will say something like, look, I am really trying. I'm putting in some effort. I am trying to be kind. I'm trying to be thoughtful, but nothing seems to be working. And then unfortunately, what ends up happening is they end up spending even more time trying the exact same things over and over and over again. And they often will fall into the trap of like, if I just keep doing these things more or for a longer period of time, one day it is going to have the result that I'm looking for. One day it will make a difference. But usually, if it hasn't already made some difference and we're 20 years into the marriage, then perhaps that particular thing is not the thing that is going to make the difference. And so what does this mean for us? This means that we are going to need to try something different and something new, and to move away from just spending more time doing something that is not bringing us any results. Now, there are obviously some things that are worthy of our time and our efforts, and maybe the results are not immediate results, right? We see results maybe in a little bit of time. And I'm not talking about that type of situation. I'm talking about, hey, I've been trying the same thing for the last 5 years and it hasn't been working. And I'm really starting to feel like my efforts and my time is going to nothing. And so that's what we want to talk about is, are we spending our time, our energy, our efforts on something that actually isn't bringing us the things that we are longing for and seeking in our relationships, within ourselves, and obviously for this podcast, when it comes to the intimate relationship that we share with our spouse. So what are we going to do about this? First of all, I want to share a quote, and I'm sure we have all heard this before, but I just wanted to start with it because it really resonates, I think, with so many of us, especially when it comes to this topic of intimacy, because it can be a frustrating topic. It can be a hard one to talk about, let alone know how to go about trying to improve intimacy or solve for the challenges that we face. So here is the quote from Albert Einstein, and it goes like this: insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. All right. We do this. I work with wives that say, hey, I am doing these things and hoping that the result will be better when it comes to sex and intimacy, but there are no better results. I hear husbands that say, hey, I did the dishes. I helped with the kids, but my wife still wasn't in the mood to be intimate with me. So they end up doing just more of that over and over, day after day. And they're like, how come I'm not getting the results? Well, that particular thing, maybe doing the dishes, or maybe a wife praising her husband or looking for something good about him, maybe those are not the things that are actually going to bring about the results we want. So we are going to need to do something different if we want different results. So that is what we're going to talk about today. So what is insanity, right? What is it actually? Obviously, we know that there is a very extreme kind of definition or idea that we have out there and that's out in the world about insanity, where it is the state of being mentally ill, right? And that's not really what we're going to be talking about right now. We're just talking about, oh my gosh, I feel very stuck. I feel like nothing is working. And we're not talking about the actual mental illness of insanity. But insanity can also be defined as extreme foolishness or unreasonableness. I really like this definition because a lot of times when I start working with couples, I will give them a solution, often that is very simple, and they don't believe it, right? They think it's foolish. So they keep doing the things that haven't been working. Or they think that what I'm asking them to do is unreasonable, even though it's not a hard thing. They just don't see that it is reasonable because they haven't been on the other side long enough to, have worked with hundreds of couples to say, like, this actually works. It's not hard. It's actually simple, but they can be unreasonable about a simple solution. Insanity can also be defined as senseless conduct, right? Behaviors that where we did not use our senses, we did not use our thinking ability. And finally, insanity can be defined as irrationality. We were not rational in the way that we approached something or the way that we did something, the way we behaved with our spouse, or when it came time to sex and intimacy. We were not rational. And I think this is probably the one that most couples fall into, right? They don't know that, hey, if you follow a simple formula, a simple system for sex, then it really alleviates most of the problems that couples face when it comes to that. And so they just continue on doing the same things that they are doing. That's not giving them the results. Okay, I wanted to share another quote from you, and it's from a girl named Emily. I'm probably going to butcher this last name, Mouratain or Mauritane. And it says, "You're not stuck. You're just committed to certain patterns of behavior because they helped you in the past. Now, those behaviors have become more harmful than helpful. The reason you can't move forward is because you keep applying an old formula to a new level in your life. Change the formula to get a different result." Oh, I really loved this quote because, again, it's talking about, hey, if you don't like the results that you're currently having, you need to do something different. And she really addressed that sometimes we get stuck doing the same things we've done in the past. Maybe one approach that we're using worked once. And so we just keep applying that. But now, let's say 20 years later in the relationship, we're further along in our careers. We don't have toddlers anymore. We've got teenagers and maybe some adult kids. And we are at a new level in the relationship. And that new level is going to require some new skills. And so if we're able to just think about it like that, okay, well, that's not that difficult. We just need some new skills that we haven't learned yet. Well, let's learn those. Yes, that is a fabulous approach. And it's a fabulous mindset to have. So I wanted to talk about 3 things maybe that you could try this week, right? Maybe these are 3 things you've never done before. Maybe these are 3 things you've never heard about. They are new and you're like, okay, like, let's try something new. We're in a new stage in life. We're not in the same place that we were 20 years ago. So let's try something new. And I wanted to point out that our brain really likes newness. You know why? It's fun and exciting. Yes, some new things can feel terrifying and can make us worrisome or anxious or nervous, but our brain just thinking about trying something new can feel very invigorating. And it can feel very motivated to actually carry out the actions and the behaviors to bring about that new thing and hopefully new results. So I wanted to just talk about these three ideas, and you can either try all three of them, you could try one or two. The first one is to rewrite your honeymoon night. Now, why would I say this? The reason I bring this up is because I have a feeling that most husbands may not be aware that the honeymoon night or the first time they were intimate with their wife, that it may not have gone as well for the woman, for your wife, as it did for you. It is very well studied and documented how men receive pleasure, how they have an orgasm, how they become aroused, and there's no mystery there. And so for most first night and honeymoon night experiences, the man will often become aroused pretty easily. They get in the mood very easily. They feel pleasure during intercourse and they have an orgasm. And for them, it's awesome. It's a great experience. And unfortunately, for the wife, it often is not a wonderful experience. There are often times where things are new to them. They don't know what to expect. They don't even understand how their body works. They don't understand where pleasure comes from. They think it's just going to be in the vagina. And so the clitoris is left out. And they often end up having an experience that is unlubricated, dry, sometimes ripping or tearing or stinging. And that leads to a painful experience instead of a pleasurable experience. And so we have a husband who's like, yes, sex is wonderful and amazing. And then we have a wife who has an experience where they think, what is the big deal? This is awful. And I don't know if I'm really into it or if I ever want to have it again. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of times a wife will carry that negative experience with her, and she may carry it in silence and in secret have all these negative thoughts about that first experience. And she may never share that with her husband, and her husband may just continue on wanting more and more sex naturally with his wife and will not understand the holdup, will not understand why his wife is resistant to something so pleasurable for him, but not as pleasurable for her. And he may not understand that because his wife may not have communicated that. So what do we do in that situation? Well, we can rewrite the honeymoon night. And this can be a fun and exciting activity, right? We often hear about couples after so many years in marriage, whatever, however long of a time, there's no set thing where they want to kind of like recommit and renew their vows. But what if you were to take a different approach and say, yeah, I like that idea, but what if we're going to rewrite our honeymoon night and include the idea that, hey, we're in a new phase in our relationship. We're in a new phase in life at a new level. We know each other differently. And we are going to need to learn new skills that will help us now that we may not have needed 20 years ago. And what if we were able to approach rewriting the honeymoon night with this type of mindset? Well, that could be awesome. Now, you can have a lot of fun with this, right? You could maybe get your wedding dress on, girls, right? Go pull out the wedding dress from the closet, or just wear something white, right? You can do it however you want. You get to create whatever type of experience you want so you can rewrite your honeymoon night. Now, how do we communicate something like this, right? Husbands, I want to invite you to ask your wife a question. Ask her something along these lines. If you could rewrite our honeymoon night, what would be different? What an awesome question, right? And don't take offense by what she says, right? Because both of you are entering into that sexual experience with you both being new to each other. And so there's no reason to take things personally, right? You want to improve intimacy. We're going to have a little bit of grit here and be able to say, I'm going to receive this answer as a learning experience. This is new knowledge. Anything that my wife says at that point when I ask her this question is going to be a way that we can improve things and make things better. She will give you insight as she answers of things that she needs to be different. It may have nothing to do with you. So don't take it personal, right? It's just how things that her body will need to experience in a different way. And if she is able to give you an answer, that is fabulous news. Take it and run with it. Now, for the wife, I want you to advocate for yourself. And you can do this by saying, I would love to rewrite our honeymoon night in this one way. And don't give a list of like 20 things that went wrong. Just pick out the one that you think would make the biggest impact and say in this one way, like I would love to have more time to prepare, to relax my body or to create the scene or have it feel more romantic. I would love to bring spirituality into it. Whatever that one thing is, add that, advocate for it and say, let's just work on this one thing. Now, that can be a really bonding experience, and it can take something that may have been negative in the past and it can replace it with a new, improved, more positive experience. An experience that is based in rationality, right? It's been thought through. We are going to be sensible. We're going to use our senses. There's going to be reason behind it. So all these definitions that were related to insanity, we're going to be doing the opposite. Is going to be a very sane approach to our sex life. Awesome and amazing. Okay, the second idea is to increase relaxation. Now, please don't disregard this idea, because when women are stressed, that hormone of cortisol, the stress hormone, blocks her desire to be intimate. So if we want to increase the woman's desire to be intimate, we are going to have to address stress. It is going to be required. So if we start adding some relaxation, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's a bubble bath or listening to calming music or just having some alone time before intimate time, whatever that looks like for you, add some of that in. This can really, really help. So husbands, if you don't know how to help your wife relax or what it is that she needs to relax, ask her. Asking is key. Husbands, I hope you start asking your wife a lot of questions, because then she is going to really think about that and interpret your asking in a positive way. Like, oh, he really wants to understand me. He wants to know more about me. Yes. She will make that mean all kinds of wonderful and positive things about you as a man, as a husband, as a lover, and as a spouse. It's really, really good. Ask some questions. So you could ask her something along these lines. What's one thing I can take off your plate today? That's just one example. How about what's one thing I could do to help you relax? Or what's one thing you need that would help you relax? You may not have to do anything. What if it's like, what if she just says, hey, I just need some time to myself for 30 minutes? That's not you having to go do a million things, right? It's not like all of a sudden you got a to-do list that's 10 pages long. So we don't want to overthink this and make it mean, hey, it's going to be too big, too hard, too long if I ask her that question. And you can also set the parameters, right? By saying, what's one thing I could take off your plate today? Oh man, when my husband asks me that, I'm almost instantly in the mood. Except that if he's asking me, it's because my stress level's high, but him asking me immediately lowers my stress level and I immediately feel closer to him. And I almost always think I want to get busy with him later on tonight. That's how significant that process and that concept is of addressing stress and trying to lower it. Now, for the wife, you can also advocate for yourself in this way. Here's a skill that most of us are not taught. It's so simple. It's a 3-word sentence, and we can just say, I feel stressed. How many of us just verbalize our feelings with such simplicity? Not very often. We often are not taught that being able to say that 3-word sentence is a skill. Husbands, if your wife says to you, I feel stress, I hope that you will perk up and say, oh my gosh, that is the biggest blocker to her feeling desire. Like, I should be interested in this. This would be very advantageous for me and our relationship if I pay attention when she says, I feel stressed. And then you can, once a wife says, I feel stressed, she can advocate for herself. Hey, could you take one thing off your plate? Or, hey, I just need a few minutes. Hey, I need some downtime. I need to take a bubble bath, right? She can use all those I statements to advocate for herself, the things that she needs to be able to lower her stress. This is an awesome way to collaborate and to coordinate. It's amazing. It's not about like, oh, I've got to give up myself so that my wife can, have her me time, right? Me time is sexy time. So we need to be able to look at that in a very positive way. Okay, and the third idea is to follow a system of sex. Yes, one exists and most people don't know about it, but it's amazing. It's very thorough, it's very complete, but is very highly personalized. So if I were to ask both the husbands and the wives, which system of sex do you guys follow for every time that you guys have sex? Could you name it for me? Most are going to be like, no, we don't follow a system. I just, we're just trying. We have our little ways of maybe the husband gives the wife a look like, hey, it's been a while. Or maybe she's just like, don't even look at me that way. What is the system of sex that is being used? If you don't have one, I want you to know that one does exist. It's called the intimacy trek. This system has a specific number of steps and they go in order. And if you follow them, the entire journey and each sexual experience can be pleasurable for both the husband and the wife, not just one spouse. The intimacy trek includes both spouses' unique arousal systems. And this is kind of one of those concepts that a lot of couples don't understand, that a husband usually has one type of arousal system and his wife has a different type of arousal system. But the intimacy trek includes both types of arousal systems. So this is a win-win. And if husbands, if your approach to sex hasn't really led to the results that you want, then you need to use a system for sex. And the same thing is true for the wives. If you don't enjoy sex, if it seems meaningless to you, If it seems pointless, or you're like, hey, there's no pleasure for me, it's only for my spouse, it's only my husband that seems to enjoy it, I have no interest. You need a system for sex because it addresses those issues. You will need the intimacy track because the steps in there are for you. They are geared towards you to include the things that do make it interesting for you, the things that do bring the sensuality and involve your senses, the things that allow your natural desire for sex to show up and arrive and participate in the party. So if you don't know it, in a way, this is good news, right? Because there is still more for you to learn and experiment with and to try this system of sex. If you haven't been following it, now's a perfect time. So if you have never bought my course called The Intimacy Effect, Intimacy Beyond Sex, it is available on my website. But if you sign up for one-on-one coaching, you get it free with one-on-one coaching. So there is a huge win on if you do it that way, because you'll get a lot of personal attention, a lot of personal insight to your specific situation, and you will also get the course with that. So don't forget to visit my site and sign up for one of those things. But for husbands, one way you could approach this is to acknowledge that something has been missing, which is a system for sex, right? If you haven't been using it, then something has been missing. And it's usually the female arousal system has been left out. And you know what? That's nobody's fault. It's not your fault. It's not your wife's fault. It is just information that has been lacking out in the world and the details of how her system works. So you can advocate, you know what, and say, something has been missing, honey. I get it. I recognize it. I acknowledge it. So let's try using a system, right? Let's try the course. And the wife can also advocate for herself. And you can say, you know what, something has been missing for me. I want things to improve. I would love if I had more desire. I would love if I had more interest, but something's been missing for me. I would love to try this system of sex that Shelley talks about, the intimacy track, and then take a step forward in that direction and learn about it and start applying it and see what a difference it can make and how quickly it can make a difference, right? So this next week, I hope that you will try out one of these 3 ideas so that you can lower this intimacy insanity and start taking a more sane approach, and an approach that actually is systematic. It makes sense. It's totally sane, and it will give you much better results. So do that for your spouse and do that for yourself this week, because remember, the more you restore this type of intimacy with yourself, the more you restore it with your spouse. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you will join me again next week.